Back here on SportsBit, Teddy Covers talking with Clay Travis from Fox Sports Radio, from Outkick the Coverage, from Fox Sports 1. Clay, you're everywhere, and I learned something new about you today that I did not know. You're a lawyer. You know what the heck's going on in terms of sports betting legalization. You went to law school.
You know what's funny about that is people on the internet are like, oh, he always tells people he's a lawyer. And you know why I started doing that was because I would give legal opinions on things when I was writing. And people would say, why should I care about your opinion? I'm like, by the way, I'm also a lawyer, right? I practiced law for a few years. So it's amazing the degree to which when I talk to young guys and girls and they say, what should I do? I say, nowadays, it's almost more valuable to have a law degree or business, an MBA, than it is to get a journalism degree. Because journalism is not that complicated. Can you tell a story or can you not tell a story? I think there's a certain level of talent associated with that. But getting an MBA and being able to break down a business, a balance sheet, or having a law degree and being able to understand complex legal issues is a rare skill that you can actually learn in school. And so, yeah, look, I feel like this Supreme Court decision, which is going to be heard in October, about whether or not New Jersey has the right to decide inside of its state to allow sports gambling, whether or not that violates PASPA, whether PASPA is unconstitutional, the prohibition of sports gambling, is going to be a blockbuster case that forever alters the way that fans, media, and gamblers certainly experience the world of sports.
Now, for the last, 15 years, we've gone from the Kyle bill, which was supposed to outlaw sports betting everywhere, even in Nevada, to now SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, has taken up the case we've been begging for them to take up, that's been working its way up through the system for the last half decade, coming out of New Jersey. And you think, I've been fairly negative. I've been bearish the whole time. I don't know the Supreme Court's going to do anything. I don't think the Supreme Court's going to take it. Even if they do take it, I don't think that they are going to legalize or allow states to legalize gambling broadly. You have a different opinion. You think that legalization is right around the corner and that this case is going to be the difference maker.
Yeah, I think this case is going to legalize sports gambling, effectively giving states the opportunity to decide whether or not they have it within their borders. I was with you. I didn't expect the Supreme Court to take the case. Once they took the case, there are 4 votes that want to overturn the Third Circuit. I would be stunned beyond belief if that's not the case, okay? And so I believe those 4 votes are probably on the conservative side. I think Antonin Scalia, with his replacement, is certainly going to be in favor of making that decision. I think that that certainly John Roberts. I think you break down, all of the conservative side of the court. There's no doubt, right, that that's going to happen. I think they're going to find a 5th vote, and it may end up being something that's like 7-2 or 8-1, because what's fascinating about sports gambling is it isn't a left or right issue. And just kind of a quick background. Typically, the Supreme Court is not going to take a case unless there's a circuit split. And so there are, I believe right now, 9 circuits. And oftentimes, let's say the 9th Circuit, which is California, might have a difference of opinion with the 3rd Circuit, which is where New Jersey is, for instance. 2 different coasts have 2 different decisions. I live in Tennessee, which is part of the 6th Circuit. So the Supreme Court tends to take cases that have circuit splits because they want to figure out what the federal law is. And they also only usually take cases that don't have circuit splits, which is what we've got in the 3rd Circuit, and if they are going to overturn the ruling of New Jersey, because it doesn't really make sense for the Supreme Court to take this case and then reinforce the ruling that already exists. So I wouldn't say stunned, but I would be highly surprised. I think it's like 75 or 80% chance that they overturn the ruling of the 3rd Circuit, which would then toss it back for people who are confused. It would toss it back to the states under federalism precepts and say, just like with, let's say, the state lottery, you have an opportunity inside your state borders to determine whether sports gambling is legal and how it should be implemented.
So you're saying minus $4, chalk.
Yes.
Big chalk that sports betting is legalized. Let's get into this. Tomorrow, the Supreme Court rules that sports betting is legalized, or that states can make their own laws regarding sports betting. How does that change the marketplace? How does that change the world when it comes to the sport, to certainly this target audience?
I was just in London and traveling all over England with my family for part of our summer vacation. And there are sports books everywhere. Every block. There's 3 or 4 different companies. It's exactly what it's like. It's just like Starbucks. And I think the first question that a lot of people would have is, what is the implementation going to look like on an individual state level? Remember, you got 50 basically laboratories out there that are all going to try to figure out how to make as much money off of legalizing sports gambling as they can if they do it. So will they require someone to physically walk into a building to place a bet? Will they allow somebody to download an app? Will there be a license fee that the individual sports gambler has to buy? What's it going to look like? I have no idea. Because I think for most people, I'm 38 and I'm on the upper end of people who read what I write and consume our content. Most people who are of my ilk have phones and believe that you should be able to gamble. It's like a God-given right? Like the idea that you can't get out your phone and bet on a game and then also bet on a game while it's going on. The younger you are, the more insane you think it is that that's prohibited. Right? Because they've grown up basically with their phones attached to their hips. And so I'm curious how progressive individual states will be. Will they recognize that the best way to get tax dollars is to allow online wagering? Because if you require somebody to walk into a physical location, then I think a lot of offshores may still have a big advantage, right? Because then those offshore sites still are offering it online. Mobile. And here's the other thing that's confusing. I travel a lot. Let's say you're traveling to go to a game. How crazy is it going to seem to a young guy if on his iPhone he can bet on a game in the state of Tennessee where I live, and he can go watch the University of Tennessee play in Knoxville because he's living in that state. I live in Nashville. Let's say you live in Nashville. Let's say you want to go watch your team play in Alabama. How crazy is it going to seem to them that they can't place a bet once they cross the state line into Alabama on their phone? Or even crazier, that you can place a bet physically in some states and not in other states, right? So I think that there are a lot of details. If I were designing, if they said, Clay Travis, you're now the grand czar of figuring out how sports gambling should exist in the country, what I would suggest is that you need a national law.
Agreed.
And that it needs to apply across everywhere. And so, this should be like going to Amazon.com and buying something as opposed to the hodgepodge of laws that we have in place, let's say, for alcohol. You know how in alcohol, in Tennessee for a long time where I live, you couldn't buy wine in grocery stores.
Sure, you can't buy on a Sunday or the stores close at 8 o'clock.
And some places don't allow liquor to be sold. Like whereas I travel and work a lot in California, I could roll into California and buy whatever I wanted in a grocery store, right? Individual liquor stores. I think what they need in this day of era is a modern existing framework of law that exists across every state. And I don't know what that would look like. But I believe that it should be as easy to gamble on a sport as it is to order something from Amazon.
We're here with Clay Travis from Fox Sports. Clay, I want to ask one more question on this subject, and to me, it's the biggest question of all. Nevada has never used sports betting as a revenue generator.
Right.
The state tax is 1/4%, and the books eat it, and that allows for 11 to 10. It allows for you lay 11 to win at 10. If states start looking at sports betting as a legitimate revenue generator, there's going to be a bigger tax, and that's the end of 11 to 10, which means every bookie's still in business, every offshore is still in business. Do you see a scenario in which the Supreme Court legalizes gambling state by state, and yet all the bookies are still in business, and all the offshores are still in business, and the state-run operations don't do anything because they're not dealing with a 11 to 10 scenario?
So, in an ideal framework, I think what would make the most sense is you pay for a license. Like people have hunting licenses.
Sure.
And let's say you paid $100 a year, and that allowed you to legally sports gamble. And instead of taxing every individual bet, every jurisdiction just taxed you on the $100 fee. To me, that would be the best way for states to raise money. Now, it may not be as lucrative, and then you could still tax the individual companies off of their earnings because, the sports books would do well, the companies that are making money. You tax off their earnings and make that money. What I wonder on some level, technologically, and that's why I said, are they going to be progressive or are they going to continue to chase where everybody is? I don't think we're that far away from creating a network where individual gamblers bet against each other.
Sure.
And therefore, the juice gets reduced substantially, right?
There's stuff like that. Certainly, Matchbook is a classic example offshore, and they're not the only one.
I think imagine how massive that could get if you had it was like a live stock market all day long, and you had 1 million people, which is probably a low number, that signed up for this business, and you were going in all day, and you pay a license fee, and if you believe that USC -10 is a great bet against UCLA. You can go in there and find somebody directly to place your bet with. And then there's a company that's in charge of basically holding that money, right? Like debiting your account. And then they reward whoever wins the money, and they take it out of the account of whoever loses, and they take a small share every time, almost like a credit card company.
Yeah.
That, to me, is the most efficient way that this market should exist. I question whether the states are going to be progressive enough to design a system such as that. But that's what should exist.
Yeah, having seen state governments function,
Yeah.
I'll take the under on how good the legislation is. Thank you so much, Clay Travis. We'll have you back again.
Hey guys, for the full video, go to sbrpicks.com.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.